Hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Dubai. Can everybody hear me? Is my audio clear?
Yes, Priska.
Amazing. Okay, great. And well, as all can hear me, welcome to our 66th live webinar. And my name is Kriska, and I am very delighted to be here with you today alongside the TDCC training team. And we are excited to bring you another interesting topic today, understanding emotional dysregulation through a sensory lens. And on behalf of TDCC, we would like to thank the 207 advocates from 18 countries who registered for this session. And to those who have joined us live, thank you for your time and for your presence. And we would like to acknowledge our registrants from Australia, Egypt, France, Finland, India, Iraq, Lebanon, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, Russia, South Africa, and Sri Lanka, and also, of course, UAE, UK, USA, and Zimbabwe. So wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And so before we begin, let me share a short video about TDCC and our esteemed speaker for today. Thank you.
Welcome to the TDCC Community Live webinar.
TDCC stands for the Developing Child Center located in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, UAE.
Established in 2012. We have been providing personalized support to over 1,000 children. We have 60 dedicated and committed experts, and we work closely with parents and schools to ensure no child is left behind. We think different, we teach different. We empower, not limit children. Labels like autism, dyslexia, and ADHD are not relevant or perceived as disabilities, difficulties, or disorders that limit children's abilities. We believe that brilliance needs difference. The TDCC services are available in English, French, and Arabic. The inclusive educational services nurture and support the developmental and educational needs and help empower each child to reach their full potential. Occupational therapy assists children in performing and achieving important learning and developmental skills they need in life. Psychomotor therapy is a healthcare profession that is based on a holistic view of the person and is involved in the treatment of different disorders. Speech and language therapy assists children who have disorders of speech, language, communication, and swallowing. Psychology provides both educational and clinical services, including counseling and parenting. ABA therapy focuses on improving specific behaviors. It is commonly practiced as a therapeutic intervention for individuals with autism. Specialist learning support. We assist in developing the academic and social development of students who need support in all these areas. And we design and host local and international training and workshops for practitioners, parents, caregivers, and educators. Just like this one today. We have a few rules to follow during the webinar. Please remain muted while the speaker is presenting. Please give your full attention to the presentation. We will be sending you the replay, so you can review it anytime. Please be interactive if the speaker requests your participation. During the question and answer session, we kindly request everyone to type their questions in the chat box and the speaker will address them.
What's new in TDCC today? Introducing the Empower Me Parent Support Program. Join our 7-week Empower Me journey led by TDCC psychologists to support your parenting confidence, emotional strength, and home routines. Designed for parents of children with learning and developmental challenges. Contact TDCC to join. Dyslexia and Dysgraphia Intervention Program. Empower your child with evidence-based literacy support. Our structured reading and writing intervention helps children aged 6+ build strong foundational skills, monitored every step of the way. Enroll your child now. Phonics Summer Camp. This 15-hour small group phonics program is perfect for children with dyslexia or literacy difficulties. Led by dyslexia and literacy specialists using best practices from the USA. Summer Intensive Program 2025, now enrolling our magical summer adventure. With themes like superheroes, cooking, and sensory play, this inclusive program supports all areas of child development in a fun and engaging setting. Enroll your child now. Welcome to the 66th TDCC webinar, Understanding Emotional Dysregulation Through a Sensory Lens. We are pleased to present our speaker today, occupational therapist Badar Jahan from the Developing Child Center. With over a decade of experience in pediatric occupational therapy, Badar brings a depth of clinical expertise and compassionate insight to her work with children of determination. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Occupational Therapy, is a certified sensory integration practitioner, and holds specialized certifications in CERTS levels 1, 2, and 3 in DIR Floor Time 101. Her evidence-based approach integrates functional skill development with emotional and sensory understanding, allowing her to support children in a truly holistic way. Badar has worked extensively with children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, developmental delays, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, Williams syndrome, and other neurological conditions. Her areas of focus include feeding therapy, handwriting challenges, sensorimotor and perceptual integration, as well as cognitive and behavioral support strategies. As a proud member of the World Federation of Occupational Therapy, Badar continues to advocate for inclusive practices that honor each child's unique regulation and learning needs both here at TDCC and globally. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Badar Jahan.
Hi, Badar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for
Hello.
coming here today.
Yes, you may share your screen now. Thank you.
Sure. It's this one?
Yeah.
We can see your screen now. It's perfect. You're muted, Badar. Can you please switch on your mic? Turn on.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
All right. It's good to see all of you here today at this platform. Thank you so much for coming here and giving me this opportunity to share my some experiences with you all. As you all just saw the video that today, and Kriska also shared that today's topic is understanding emotional dysregulation through a sensory lens. Today's takeaways would be you'll gain insight related to the sensory systems and how they influences child's ability to manage emotions. You'll be able to understand how you can identify at least what are the triggers and how you can respond to help the child regulate themselves. And You will be able to learn and discover some simple sensory tools and simple routines to support the children with emotional challenges. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a few cases that I've dealt with, and I would like it to be a little more interactive, and I would see that what are you seeing, what are the actual triggers here in these simple cases that I'm going to share with you. So for that, you can write your whatever you think could be the triggers here in the chat box, and I will see it for that. Thank you. So we'll start with case 1. And the case 1 is a 5-year-old girl with no medical condition, and she was referred for OT due to frequent emotional dysregulations. Her teacher reported that she was having difficulties with the transitions and she was being easily overwhelmed by daily routines. She also mentioned that there were sudden changes in the mood. There were avoidance for the group tasks, and there was a tendency to become tearful, aggressive, and they also noticed at times that they were withdrawn from certain tasks as well whenever she was overstimulated. So when an OT did the observation, I noticed that she was reacting strongly whenever there was unexpected sounds and there were loud noises. She was getting upset wherever there was a light touch. There was what I noticed more that she was constantly in emotion. She would be like you would be seeing her running a lot, maybe enjoying the spinning activities and the jumpings as well. She was also observed bumping into the furnitures. So what do you think were the triggers here that were leading towards the emotional dysregulation? You can write anything if you feel like, whatever you think, you can write that in the chat box. No? It's okay. Yes, there were sensory triggers. That's very good. Yes. Yes, the attention was less. Yes, definitely the sensory processing difficulties were there. Yes, tactile was there, loud sounds. Yes, very good. So I would just add a little add on to the sensory parts here that yes, there was very good. Thank you so much, everybody. Overhearing the noise, hyperactive. So yes, there was auditory hypersensitivity due to which she was reacting unexpectedly to the sounds. For example, classroom bells or peer shouting. There was tactile desensitiveness, and because of which she was avoiding the classmates and she was avoiding the group tasks because, of course, in the group tasks, they were sitting closely, and that increases that the touches, or like, when you're close to your classmates. She was seeking a lot of vestibular. That's why she was constantly in that motion and throughout the day. There was also under-responsive proprioception, due to which she was bumping into the furnitures as there was a lack awareness of his body in space. So definitely the triggers here are, the triggers for the dysregulation part here were the sudden changes in the routine. So there were constant transitions without warnings, overstimulation environments such as crowded assemblies, noisy lunch halls, classrooms. So she was constantly sensory overloaded because of the noise, touch, and there was a delay. So since she was getting overloaded, there was a delay in an access to movement or a sensory break. Since she was needing that so much, this behavior of hers being constant in the motion was seen. And of course, she was struggling. There was a difficulty in communicating when she was overwhelmed. She couldn't understand what's happening to me, but all was looking all together was that she was actually struggling emotionally. Let's go to case study 2. A 4-year-old boy was again referred to an OT due to frequent emotional outbursts and difficulty coping with frustration when there are changes in the plan, routines, and expectations. His teacher reports that he shows a rigid way of thinking and becomes distressed if he makes a mistake or cannot complete a task successfully, whether the task is academic or motor based. He experiences emotional breakdowns that includes his emotional breakdowns were including the verbal expressions like I can't do it, and he was crying. There was a refusal to continue the activity. And then again, there was also an avoidance in the future attempts at the same tasks. So what he observed was, first was the posture. There was a lot of slouchy posture. The child was fatigued. He was fatigued. He was getting fatigued quickly. And there was a use of compensatory postures. For example, you notice children doing a lot of W sittings. At homes, in the classrooms as well. There was a distress that was observed by the OT when there was a change in plan, routines, and expectations. He was also reacting to the loud noises, but he liked bright lights, and he likes to wear the bright clothing as well. Loses balance on uneven surfaces. Because of course in OT room we have a lot of soft play equipments as well. So that's what noticed, that he was losing the balance easily. And though he enjoys jumping on a trampoline and he enjoys the swinging activities a lot, but there was a lot of struggle while performing the gross motor activities. So what do you think were the triggers here? Change of routines, yes. Yes, seeking movement, auditory sensitivity, vestibular imbalances, routine changes. Yes, scared to do something new. Yes, definitely. Distressed by changes. Yes, inflexible thoughts. Rigid patterns. Yes, that's right. There were a lot of rigid patterns. Hypersensitivity to proprioceptive and vestibular input. Yes. Executive function problems. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. That's all right. You guys are quite knowledgeable all here. So definitely there was a rigid processing style. So strong need for control and sameness, struggle to adapt, or he was struggling with the problem solve when things go wrong. He was craving for movements such as jumping and swinging, and often moves to regulate himself. There was definitely tactile sensitivity, and he was hesitant to engage in messy or sticky textures. There was auditory sensitivity involved as well. But the boy was very creative. He was very creative. He enjoys engaging well in imaginative plays, specifically when it involves all the fine motor tasks. He loves to do the coloring or any creativity we would like to do with the fine motor activities. He loves to do that wherever with all of those activities which were pressure free. But when we look into the promoter profiles, yes, there was a struggle with the gross motor activities, which I could see that he was actually struggling with the motor planning. And not just that, there were slouches, fatigues quickly, and this compensatory posture showed me that actually, and after doing some clinical observations, I could see there was core weaknesses involved as well. And the triggers here were he was making mistakes during an activity, which was a big trigger for emotional dysregulation. He was unable to complete a task, and for example, tower keeps falling again and again, puzzle piece doesn't fit, physically challenging or unfamiliar tasks, changes in routine, or if the instructions were too much for him to cope. If the prepare interferences were there, that was also too much for him to cope up with. And again, there was a lot of sensory overwhelming as well for him. For example, too much noise, or when the instructions are too much in the classroom, that was the trigger for his emotional dysregulations. Let's move to our case study 3. So that's now this time it was a 4.5 years old girl. She was with a diagnosis of ADHD and was referred to OT due to frequent emotional outbursts and impulsivity, particularly in group settings. Her teacher reported incidents where she lashes out at peers, especially when frustrated or is overstimulated. Emotional episodes often escalate quickly, and she appears to have limited awareness of her actions affect others. So occupational therapist observed that there was a repetitive, scripted, and controlling in her interactions with materials and peers. There was a low tolerance for swinging and spinning activities. Her mother also reported me that she used to face motion sickness whenever they were traveling. She enjoys jumping on the trampoline, crashing on the crash mat in therapy room was her. She just loves that. She enjoys tactile activities, and there was a struggle to understand emotions. So, what do you guys think were the triggers here? Distractions? Yes, okay. Poor theory of mind affecting social perception and functioning. Not understanding emotions. Yes, the awareness was less related to emotions. Need to do or get what they want immediately. Yes, not willing to wait. Unfamiliar with the place or people, weak play skills, difficult to refocus. Yes. That's nice. Okay, so now let's look into what actually was happening. So what were through the observations, we see that there's a lot of rigid play behavior, and because of which she was controlling in her interactions with the materials and peers. She was having low vestibular tolerance, and she was avoiding she was not actually avoiding swingings and spinning, but yes, she would go on it, but after 4 minutes max, she would be like, okay, that I would like to get down. There was a lot of proprioceptive seeking involved. There was a lot of tactile seeking as well. And yes, emotional awareness difficulties were there. So the triggers here were peer conflict, being told no or asked to stop an activity, transitions away from preferred sensory tasks that would bring out emotional dysregulations as well. She would outburst. Situations requiring flexibility in play or group negotiations were just not acceptable from that child. It was hard for her. All right, so now let's move to our next slide. Emotional dysregulation. Well, emotional dysregulation is the inability to manage or respond to emotional experiences in a socially appropriate or flexible way. Now, since we are talking about emotional dysregulation, then a lot of you must be thinking that if this is what it is, then what is sensory dysregulation? So, well, let's look into that as well, that it's a difficulty in processing and organizing and responding appropriately to sensory input. So when sensory input overwhelms the nervous system, it can trigger emotional dysregulation, including restlessness, impulsivity, and meltdowns. Children can be overly sensitive, which we actually call sensory over responsivity. And they can be under responsive as well, which we call sensory under responsivity to sensory stimuli. Those with emotional dysregulation can lack self-awareness of their emotions. When left untreated, it can precipitate a lifelong struggle with family, friends, relationships, and co-workers. Now, let's look into the triggers in a little more detail. Understanding possible triggers of the emotional dysregulation. Sensory triggers. Sensory triggers could be loud or unpredictable noises like alarms, crowded spaces, bright lights or flickering screens, unexpected touch or, sorry. Okay, yes. Unexpected touch or light touch, for example, from peers, clothing tags, strong smells, for example, cleaning products, or could be the foods for some children as well. There could be some perfumes as well, messy or sticky hands, for example, glue, paint, the changes in the temperature as well, if the classrooms are hot or if there's a very strong cold winds. Vestibular overload, for example, spinning or car rides. Interoception, for example, hunger, thirst, or tiredness issues. Next is the cognitive triggers. The cognitive triggers could be unexpected changes in routines or transitions, demands that exceed the cognitive capacity, for example, multitasking, abstract reasoning, difficulty understanding structures, being rushed or under time pressures. For example, a lot of children who are now going into a little who are going to the higher grades and are expected to give the exams, and then the exams have limited time period. So there's a lot of time pressure involved in that as well. A lot of times it's the classroom task that they have to complete within that time limit, and they are not able to complete that. So that's again a lot of pressure on them, which it's a struggle for them to cope up with. Fear of making mistakes or failing. Next is emotional triggers. Difficulty identifying or naming emotions, not feeling understood or validated, anxiety or fear, especially in unpredictable environments. Next, we'll talk about the social triggers, such as the peer conflicts, teasing, bullying, very common in schools, misreading social cues, especially that goes especially with autisms and ADHD, overwhelming group settings, for example, assemblies, birthday parties, high social demands, for example, group work, class presentations. There could be internal body triggers as well. such as over or under responsiveness to sensory input. A child could be in pain, it could be ill as well, or they're just fatigued. There could be a lot of hormonal shifts or hunger as well. There could be the trauma reminders as well related to the senses. For example, smells, sounds, places, object that subconsciously activate old stress. For example, a boy gets triggered and gets anxious by just looking at a balloon or at a cake, just because having a bad experience and in a birthday party, in his own birthday party, which because he had a sensory sensitivity, auditory sensitivity, tactile sensitivity, and that could lead to such bad sensory experience that by just looking into that object can subconsciously activate the stress in a child. Environmental triggers: chaotic, cluttered, or noisy environments, lack of predictability in schedule or structures, overstimulating classrooms, therapy rooms, or sometimes at home as well. Now, let's see that what actually is the connection of this whole emotional dysregulation with the senses, and how the application of the senses or the sensory integration or those activities what the occupational therapists perform in the therapy room can actually help the child with the emotional dysregulation. So before okay, I'll just share the slide with you guys. Okay, so I'll just give you a little outline related to what's actually happening in our brain and what the important parts of the brain which are involved in all of this. Now, the major system of the brain that actually deals with the emotions, that is actually called the emotional control center of the brain, is the limbic system. This system includes thalamus, amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus. These four parts, in which thalamus is just like a gate. It's like a sensory gate which allows the senses to enter, or sometimes it will see that if it's needed or not. So it's like a sensory gate for the brain at the limbic system. Now, when they enter through the thalamus, it goes to the amygdala that is responsible for the alerts or the stress or danger. Next, I couldn't get the picture of hippocampus added into this picture, so I just put it on the side. But hippocampus is responsible to store emotional memories. And hypothalamus controls body responses like heart rate, hunger, and hormones. Now, what actually happens is that whenever the sensory input enters through the thalamus part of the limbic system acts as a sensory relay station, like it's a gate. So it receives the sensory signals, for example, touch, sound, proprioception, vestibular, and sends them to appropriate brain areas. When sensory input is overwhelming, or when it's new, or when it's threatening, the thalamus may prioritize it as urgent, and making it so urgent will trigger our second part of the brain, which is amygdala. Now, you need to remember these two parts, amygdala and hypothalamus, which are the major areas here for us in this emotional dysregulation part, because amygdala is the one that gets us alert. It's related to the stress. It's related to the danger. So, whereas the hypothalamus controls the body responses like heart rate, hunger, and hormones. So what happens when amygdala detects a threat, and he says that there's a trigger through an emotional response. The amygdala interprets whether the sensory input is safe or if it's dangerous. If the input is perceived as threatening, for example, loud noise or scratchy clothing, it activates the fight, flight, or freeze response, even if it's not objectively dangerous. But in that scenario, for a child, it's going to be like, for them, it's a danger situation. Now, what happens is that when the amygdala is triggered, the hypothalamus engages the sympathetic nervous system. And now, how do we see that in our body? We see that our heart rate increases, our stress level increases. When stress level is increasing, that means the cortisol levels are increasing, right? We also see the tense in muscles, the digestive system. We see we feel weirdness in our stomach. We also sometimes we are not able to sleep properly. This, now you can see that this is now contributing the physiological state of dysregulation. Now, hippocampus. This system, again, when I said that this links the sensory experiences to the emotional memory, the hippocampus stores emotional context related to the sensory events. A child who had a meltdown during a loud birthday party may feel anxious around just a balloon, even if they don't recall why. Now you must be seeing that there is another part, another name written here after all these four sections of the part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. Now, this part of the brain, prefrontal cortex, is responsible for executive control. You can see, you can remember it in your mind by just saying that this part of the brain is something that is stops you from hitting your boss sitting in a meeting. I'm just giving you an example that this system deals with the executive functioning. So if a person or a brain, if they are under stress and they are sensory overload, what happens that the limbic system, which is amygdala and hypothalamus, they hijacks the brain. And then this prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning, self-regulation, it just shuts down. The child, and how will you see that in real life? The child will become impulsive, tearful, angry, unable to use coping tools. I know that in this picture, you must be seeing all these OT strategies and all this regulation part. We will talk about all this in the slides after a few time. Okay. So now let's just move to the next slide. Okay. Here you can see that emotional dysregulations is found in all of these conditions, in all of these disorders. That could be ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, specific learning difficulties, autism spectrum disorder, anxiety, Tourette syndrome, obsessive compulsive disorder, gifted dyspraxia, which is also known as the motor planning disorder, ADD, attention deficit disorder, sensory processing disorder, and depression. Let's move to our next slide. The sensory connection. Well, by this time, you must all need to know that the sensory input is equal to the fuel for the nervous system. So if the emotional outbursts are happening, that it means it is followed by the sensory overload or sensory deprived. As we talked about it previously, that they could be so sensory over responsive as well, or they could be sensory under responsive as well. Let's go to our next slide. The 8 sensory systems. Here, I'm not going to explain all of the sensory systems in detail, because we have already done that in our previous slides. But I will just give you an outline related to the senses, but I will show you, I will share with you that how each system is connected with the limbic system and how they are playing their role for the emotional regulations. Okay. Just a minute, please. The first is the visual system. What it does. The visual system is responsible for receiving and processing information through the eyes. It helps us recognize shapes, colors, faces, letters, understand spatial relationships, track movement, interpret visual cues like facial expressions. Now, the thalamus routes visual information. As I told you, the thalamus is the sensory gate, that is through which the sensory enters. So the information enters. So the thalamus routes visual information to the amygdala and hippocampus, allowing us to attach the emotional meaning to what we are seeing. For example, seeing a frown triggers concern or a fear. But similarly, if you are going to look at a favorite toy that evokes joy or comfort. Now, why does all this matters in emotional regulation? Children who are visually sensitive, for example, overwhelmed by bright lights, cluttered spaces, or fast movement, may have a stronger limbic system reaction, and that leads to emotional dysregulation. A visually overloaded environment can trigger stress, just like noise or a movement. So, busy, cluttered classrooms can trigger anxiety, and also you can see the withdrawals of the child from the activities, or maybe not willing to come to the classrooms, or sometimes maybe to the school. Sudden movement in peripheral view causes startle or a fear reaction. Soft lighting and calm visuals helps reduce arousal and supports the regulation. These were just few examples related to OT. Next is the gustatory system. The gustatory system is responsible for detecting flavors: sweet, soft, salty, sour, bitter. It helps us recognize safe versus unsafe foods, enjoy the pleasure of eating, trigger digestive responses such as salivation, hunger, fullness. Taste is directly linked to emotions and memory. A sweet taste may trigger comfort or pleasure. A bitter or a sour taste may evoke disgust or rejection. Certain tastes can activate the emotional memories. For example, a grandma's cookies, or maybe sometimes we crave for certain food from a particular places. The limbic system assigns meaning to taste, helping children form food preferences and aversions. Emotional association with meals that provides comfort food, that can also be a trauma-linked foods as well, because the experience wasn't good when they had it. Strong reactions to oral input, such as spitting, gagging, but sometimes you might see some children craving for certain things as well. So sweet and familiar taste shows here bringing that the limbic responses are comfort and safety. Bitter and unexpected tastes are showing the disgust and rejections. Crunchy and chewy textures are, yes, are very, provides you a very calming effect through proprioception, and it gives a relief to the limbic system. Strong flavor or mixed textures can be a stress response to some children, whereas it could be a good response, or it could be alerting or a good experience for under responsive for children who are sensory under responsive. But whereas for sensory over responsive, it could bring out the meltdowns. There you can see the gagging reflexes or completely refusal for the food. Next is olfactory system. The olfactory system detects and identifies odor, pleasant, unpleasant, familiar, or dangerous. Unlike other senses, smell is the only sense that bypasses the sensory gate, which we called thalamus, the part of the brain. It bypasses the thalamus and connects directly to the limbic system, which was amygdala and hypothalamus. Now, smell is the only sense that connects directly to the limbic system without going through the brain filters. That's the thalamus. This is why smell can trigger instant and powerful emotions or memories. For example, lavender or vanilla provides you that calm and safety. Smell of fire or spoiled food will give you a fear or a disgust feeling. Smell of a favorite meal will again provide you a comfort, joy. Strong chemical smells will give you stress and nausea. This smell sensations can be used therapeutically to calm or alert a child. Calming smells could be lavender, vanilla, mild citrus, whereas alerting could be peppermint, lemon, vinegar in sensory play. These are usually the smells that usually the occupational therapist works when they're working on the olfactory sense system during the sensory play. A scent, for example, essential oil on a cotton ball can help a child self-soothe or focus. Avoid strong or unfamiliar smells for children with olfactory sensitivity as well. So again, it depends on every child. You need to look into every child's sensory needs as well. One smell, which if it's working with one child, it's not important. It doesn't mean that it's going to work with every child. So you need to look closely with their sensory profile and their sensory needs as well. Next system is the auditory system. The hearing system. The auditory system detects sound vibrations, processes them, and interpret what we hear. Speech, music, noise, danger. It plays a vital role in language development, listening and attention, social connection, and environmental awareness. This system sends sound information to the limbic system to judge how we should feel or respond emotionally. A sudden loud noise can make us jump. A song can trigger tears as well. In the same place, certain songs can bring out the joy that connects with the emotional memory. Constant background noise can create stress or shutdown in sensitive children. Here, the word shutdown you hear, that means that straight goes with the prefrontal cortex. where it's related to the reasoning and all the thinking reasoning, but it's now shut down because being sensitive to that stimuli, it's not helping the child, and it's bringing out the emotional dysregulation now. So again, let's look into it through the just a little outline related to the auditory system. That a loud, sudden bang is giving you a startled reaction. Soft, rhythmic music is giving you that calm and soothed feeling. Unpredictable classroom noise is very overwhelming. That can bring out anxiety, aggression. Sometimes even in those cases, the shutdown, and how that usually would shutdown look like. Either it's like a complete emotional outburst, and child is not able to think, or like not able to respond to any of the coping tools. Familiar voice, for example, the voice of a parent, can be comfort and provide you an emotional safety. VOTs usually uses sound environments to either calm, for example, by using the soft music or white music and white noises, or we also use to alert the child, we use the clapping or the upbeat songs as well. Creating quiet zones or offering noise cancelling headphones for children who are easily overwhelmed can actually work. We can also try children teach self-regulation strategies. For example, making them learn using the cards such as "I need quiet time." Next system is the vestibular system. This is it's a very vast system of the sensory system. This system sends messages throughout the brain. It's located in our inner ear, detects movement, head position, and balance, helps the brain understand where the body is in space. This system has direct neural connections to parts of the limbic system, especially amygdala and hypothalamus. This means movement directly influences emotional responses. So the equipment usually we uses in the therapy room for the vestibular input are the swings. And gentle swinging or simple rocking movements calms the nervous system and it reduces the anxiety. Sudden or spinning movements can be a trigger arousals, and it may lead to dry stress or fear in children who are over-responsive to the vestibular input. Whereas you would see in under-responsive children asking for more. Lack of movement may cause under-arousal, restlessness, and disconnection with the environment. Now we go for the next system, that is the proprioceptive system. What is this proprioceptive system? It helps the brain understand where the body is in space, how much force is needed for movement, the position and movement of joints and muscles. This system uses receptors in the muscles, joints, tendons to send feedbacks to the brain during pushing, pulling, lifting, jumping, squeezing, carrying heavy items. This system sends calming signals to the limbic system. When a child engages in a heavy work like lifting, pushing, jumping, proprioceptive feedback helps regulate the amygdala, decreasing the feeling of stress and danger. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes calm and emotional safety. So jumping on a trampoline releases tension, reduces emotional overwhelmness. Carrying heavy objects sends calming input to the amygdala. Pushing a weighted cart helps to regulate frustration and improve body awareness. Deep pressures, for example, giving a bear hugs, activates calming pathways, and it reduces the fear or anxieties in children. So in OT, we usually use this proprioceptive system a lot. It's like a core regulation strategy in sensory diets. Activities like wall push-ups, bear hugs, weighted toys, and resistance play are tools to help children regulate their emotions. Next system is the tactile system. This system processes the touch-based input received through the skin because it's the touch system. It helps us detect light versus deep pressure, temperature, pain, texture, vibration, pleasant versus unpleasant touch. The receptors of this system in the skin, through the touch, the system processes this whole process, the input, and then sends it to the brain for interpretation. Now, when this system sends the sensory input to the limbic system, which assigns the emotional meaning to the touch, this explains that why some touches feel comforting and soothing, whereas other touches feel threatening, irritating, and scary. That is one of the reasons gentle hug from a loved one can provide comfort and safety. Unexpected light touch from behind, maybe, can bring out the startle or a fear reaction. Sticky, messy textures could be a feeling of disgust, irritation, or a withdrawal from that activity, especially in those children which are tactile sensitive. Deep pressure, for example, weighted blankets, can provide calming effect through the parasympathetic nervous system. VOTs usually uses the tactile system, which is often used to regulate the emotions. Deep pressure, and we also use those brushing protocols that can calm an anxious system. Messy play can improve tolerance and emotional flexibility. Touch plays a key role in attachment, self-regulation, and emotional reliance. Now we go to our last sensory system. That's the interoceptive system. This system helps us sense internal body signals like hunger and fullness, thirst, pain, heartbeat, temperature, breathing, the need to go to the bathroom, emotional states like nervousness or excitement. These signals are detected by receptors inside the organs, muscles, and skin, and help the brain understand how the body is feeling inside. This system sends a signal to the limbic system, which helps us identify and respond to emotions and body needs. In other words, I would make it, just to make it even more simple, if you are feeling, if you have a fear of something, you feel your heart is racing. At the same time, you do feel your heart is racing when you're in the phase of excitement. Similarly, If we are feeling anxious, we feel sometimes some people feel like their tummy is hurting, but we also feel our tummy is hurting when we are hungry, as well as when we are feeling sick, when we are not feeling well. So the fast heartbeat plus a shaky hand that interprets I feel nervous or I am scared. Whereas a warm chest plus a relaxed muscles, that means I feel calm. My stress levels are low, like I'm completely all right. Stomach growling, I'm hungry. That can lead to maybe a cranky or a tired mood. Tight chest, shallow breathing, I'm feeling anxious. So in OT, we teach children to connect the body signals to emotions using body maps and stories. Use interoceptive games like heartbeat tracking, belly breathing, how does your body feel activities, also help children learn to pause and identify what their body is telling them just just before reacting to that certain scenarios. Emotional regulation begins with body awareness, and that starts with the interoceptive system sending messages to the limbic system. This is our last slide for today, and I've here shared just some strategies for you to take with you. When a child experiences intense sensory input, their emotional brain, that is the limbic system, may take over. This can make them feel unsafe, even if they aren't in danger, leading to meltdowns or shutdowns. OT helps by supporting their sensory needs and calming the nervous system so they can return to a state where they can think, learn, and connect. The strategies that I've shared here, such as the sensory circuit. The sensory circuit is like that is recommended by the OTs to their clients for the children. And this is like an antibiotic, which has to be done on daily basis as recommended by the therapist. If the therapist says, looking into the child needs, if she says, or the therapist says that you have to do it once a day, you need to make sure that you do it, because it's like a sensory input, like a fuel for the child that needs for that is required for the emotional regulation. Sometimes a therapist looking into the child needs, they can also say, okay, you need to do this sensory circuits thrice a day as well. Deep pressure touch, squishies, chewies, weighted items, slow swinging, rhythmic movements, slow rhythmic movements, deep breathing, blowing bubbles as well. That can also help. Yoga, dancing, playing with drums, throwing ball back and forth. Again, that's like a rhythmic movement, which is providing a lot of rhythmic input visually as well. Doing a movement activity, listening to soft music, quiet corners with low lights, using fragrances for calming strategies can vary according. So all of these strategies that I've just written just for an ideas and generally, but remember this, that all of these strategies vary according to the child's need. You need to have a professional help so that the OT can look into the sensory profile of the child, and then they can guide you that what will actually work with that child and what will not. Sometimes just lowering your voice and speaking softly gives you that emotional safety, and it's like starting with a steady presence. Children learn to regulate by first co-regulating with someone they trust. A calm tone, steady presence, and soothing physical contact like a hug or holding hands help them shift from chaos to calm. Engaging in movement activity rewires the stress responses, shifting them from flight fight situation to more balanced state. Movement also helps kids become more aware of their emotions by connecting what they feel inside of to what they feel physically. And when they practice intentional movements, they build real coping skills they can use in tough times. So encouraging movement isn't just about energy releases. It's about giving kids the tools to navigate big emotions in a way that truly works for them. But if you really see that your child is really struggling with emotional regulations and looking into all of the triggers or some of the signs, it's better to reach out for a professional help so that the therapist can guide you that what strategies will actually work, because it also depends upon providing the right level of stimulation. It can also go beyond as well, which will also not help, and it will lead to more emotional dysregulation. That was all for today. If you guys have any question from me. Um,
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much,
much.
Badar. Thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. Very insightful.
Thank you so much.
I think we don't have any further questions.
Somebody is asking for a book to use in school setting. What kind of a book are you asking me to related to? Can you specify it furthermore? Do all ADHD, ODD kids? Sorry. All children, I cannot compare each child. Either it's autism, either it's ADHD, either it's ODD. Even we do have a lot of diagnostic criterias, but still they have, when you look into the sensory, they all have different sensory needs. And that's what it is, that's where you need the OT's expertise to help you out, that how you can use those sensory to help the child. I hope that was the answer to your question. You're welcome. You're welcome, Noreen.
Okay. Can you see further more questions, Badar? Or
Understanding sensory dysregulation. I would say that though there are lots of books, how about I will ask them that I honestly I don't remember the names. I do have those names, but I cannot tell you exactly. I would ask them to just drop you an email, or you can leave your email address here, and I can drop your email later on with your answer. Could you explain sensory circuits, please, if there's sensory circuits. Basically, sensory circuits are like a circuit in which it's divided into three parts: alerting, organizing, and calming. The circuit has to be done in this way only. The first comes the alerting activity. The alerting activity could be jumping on the trampoline. And after jumping on the trampoline comes the organizing activity, in which you need to make a child perform more than one task. For example, making it a small obstacle. That could be just crawling from one side of the room to the other side of the room, and taking the objects, carrying the objects, and maybe completing a task on the other side. And then in the third one is the calming, where you can ask the child to maybe just lie down straight on the floor, or maybe just do the self-hug like this and give themselves some squeezes. So the sensory circuit involve this alerting, organizing, and calming, right? The sensory circuits should be complete within the 10 minutes. It should not be more than that. And so when we are dividing this sensory circuit into three parts, that's mean each section should be completed within 2 to 3 minutes, right? And after the sensory circuit, the child is ready to do the task, which requires attention, focus, and you will find the child very well regulated. Again, related to the sensory circuits, the exact activities varies from each child. So you need a professional hand to guide you through those activities. I think that's it for today.
All right. And of course, again, everyone, we thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Understanding Emotional Dysregulation Through a Sensory Lens. And we really appreciate your time. And of course, a big thank you to our speaker, Badar. Thank you so much for the very helpful insights and deepening our understanding on emotional regulation. And we hope you found this session helpful and informative. And also, just a quick note, our next webinar will be on August 8th. That will be hosted by the Inclusion Department, and we'd love to see you there. And again, thank you again, everyone, and we wishing you a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for joining us today. We truly appreciate your time, your thoughtful questions, and your dedication to supporting children with learning differences. A special thanks to our speaker, Praveen, for sharing his expertise and insights. And to everyone who joined us via Zoom and our YouTube live stream. Thank you. Stay connected with us. Follow TDCC on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more webinars and expert content. Please take a screenshot of the contact details now showing on your screen. Feel free to share this with friends, families, or colleagues who may benefit from it. To stay updated on future webinars, training sessions, and support services, scan the QR codes on screen. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. From all of us at the Developing Child Center, thank you and have a great day.